So let us talk about cell adaptation. So cell adaptation simply means the new state, okay, the cell becomes, okay, after the stimulus is added to it, okay. After the cell undergoes stress, it adapts to a new state so as it can maintain the normal function of itself. There are basically four types. There is hyperplasia, okay. There is hypertrophy. There is metaplasia, and also there is the atrophy. So before we understand this, let us just talk about the three cell types according to the proliferative capacity. There is labile, stable cells, okay, and the permanent, okay. So when you talk about the labile, these are the cells that proliferate continuously. They proliferate without even the stimuli such as the mediators to stimulate it, but they proliferate on its own. When you talk about the stable, it is the cells that proliferate, but only if it is being stimulated by mediators. When you talk about the permanent cells, these are the cells that does not proliferate. They do not proliferate. So for stable cells, they are mostly in quiescence states, such that they can only proliferate after being stimulated. They are in fact in a G0 phase, okay, G0 phase. So mostly the cells that contain that these cells, where can you find these cells? Like the labile cells. These labile cells, they are found in epithelial cells. Okay? Epithelial cells. Then for the stable cells, the liver, they are found in the liver, the lungs, and also the kidney. But for the permanent cells, they are found in the heart, and also the skeletal muscle. This means that the skeletal muscle, when it is damaged, it can't replace itself. But when the epithelium is damaged, it can replace, and also one of these organs, they can replace themselves. Knowing the types of cells depending on the proliferative capacities, it will help us to understand this. Let's start. What is hyperplasia? Hyperplasia simply means the increase in cell number, okay. So for the cell to increase in number, it means that they has to proliferate. So mostly these cells that undergoes proliferation, you see what's it? The labile and this, okay. The next one, it is the hypertrophy. Hypertrophy simply means the increase in the cell size. Okay. These cells, they only increase in size, but they do not proliferate. So what type is what? The permanent. Mostly, this can be the cells of the heart and also the cells of what? The skeleton. Then metaplasia. This is the change, okay? The change from one cell type to another cell type. This can be divided into two. There is epithelial, metaplasia, and the connective metaplasia. We'll focus more on this. This is just an overview of what we're going to consider in this video. So then atrophy. This is the decrease in cell size, and also the decrease in cell numbers. Okay, cell numbers. So this is how we can define this. Knowing the type of cells that undergoes this, it can help you to know where the metaplasia can occur, the hypertrophy, metaplasia, and also the atrophy. So now let us just talk about the causes or the stimulus of each, the mechanism, and also the physiological and the pathological condition of this. So let's start with the hyperplasia. So hyperplasia simply means increase in the number of cells. How is that possible? Hyperplasia, it is stimulated by the workload. This is the first stimulus, and also the hormone. Here, when you talk about the workload and the hormone, these are the stimulus. Let's now consider where this, when this stimulates, what result does it bring? So let's start with the the physiological. Okay. Physiological hyperplasia. This can be the increase in the uterus size, okay, during pregnancy, and also the increase in the size of the breasts during puberty. Okay, during puberty, the increase of the uterus during the pregnancy, and also the increase in the size of breasts during puberty. So now, what stimulates this? These are stimulated by the hormone estrogen. It causes this change. The uterus cells, they proliferate, okay, and also the granular cells proliferate so that to increase the size of the breast. Next, let us just consider the pathological. So for the pathological, this is the excess of hormonal stimulation. What does this excess hormonal stimulation cause? It causes the breakdown of the endometrium. Endometrium. So when this hormone, estrogen, it stimulates the endometrium preparation for pregnancy. Okay, so now when this estrogen withdrew, it causes the endometrium to break down, leading to menstruation. So this is the physiological and this is the pathological. So the physiological, it is the increase in the uterus size during pregnancy and also the increase of breast during puberty. Then when we talk about the pathological, it is the endometrium breakdown, the breakdown of the endometrium due to the hormonal withdrawal, such as the estrogen. Let's talk about just the mechanism. So for the cell to increase in number, this means it undergoes cell division. So the mechanisms of this is just the increase of cell division. So this cell division are caused by hormone. Hormone stimulates the cell and the cell undergoes the it starts dividing itself. Let us go to hypertrophy. So what is hypertrophy? Just like we said, hypertrophy simply means the increase in cell size. Okay, increase in cell size. What is the cause? It is the workload, okay, and the overload. These are the stimulants, the workload and the overload. So for the cell to increase in size, it means cell division shouldn't occur there, but they must be the increase in the synthesis of cell components such as proteins, and proteins are the main components that are being synthesized. So this is the mechanism. So due to one of these stimuli, it stimulates the cell or the gene of the cell is activated and expresses itself. When it expresses itself, what does it cause? It increases or directs the protein synthesis. When protein are synthesized, it increases the cellular components. When the cellular components are increased, this means that the cell will increase in its size. The tissue increases in its size. And eventually the organ will increase in its size. So hypertrophy, what types of cell with proliferative capacity undergoes hypertrophy? It is the cells of the skeletal muscle, and also the cardiac, the cells of the cardiac, which is just the myocardia. So now let us classify this under physiological and pathological. So here we are talking about the mechanism which, when the cells are stimulated by the workload or the overload, it activates the gene. The gene expresses. As it expresses, it increases the synthesis of the cell components, mainly the proteins. Then the proteins are synthesized, causes the cell to increase in size, the tissue and also the organ to increase in size. Let's talk about now the pathological hypertrophy and the physiological hypertrophy. So, okay. So talk about pathological. Pathological hypertrophy, it is mostly of the increase of the heart size, which is just the cardiac hypertrophy, hypertrophy, when the cardiac increase in size. So for the heart or for the cardiac to increase in size, it is specifically stimulated by the overload. Okay, overload simply means the increase in blood flow. So this is the pathological. This can lead to the hypertension, and also it can lead to the valve failure, the valve of the heart. Okay, so this is the pathological condition. But the physiological condition. Remember, pathological simply means the abnormal, then the physiological is just the normal. The metabolic process of the body. So when talk about physiological, it is three. There is the bulging, okay, of the skeletal muscles in bodybuilders. Okay, so the stimulus for the physiological cause, it is the workload. So for the physiological, the stimulus, it is the workload, and then for the pathological, it is the overload. So this is the workload. Okay, this results in like lifting weights, things with heavy weights. This increases the gene expression. As the gene is expressed, protein synthesis, hence you would find that the skeletal muscle increases in size. You can also see this in arthritis. So in bodybuilders and arthritis, you can see the physiological hypertrophy. It can also seen in the increase of the uterus, just like, which is also same as the one we discussed under hyperplasia. The uterus and also the breasts. Okay, breasts. The increase in the size of the uterus and the breasts during puberty and also lactation. Why this occurs on both under physiological? Because we see that for the uterus to increase, The cells do not only proliferate, but they also increase in size. That's why you see that there is also the uterus here. And also why there is also the increase in breast size during the puberty or lactation. The cells also do not only proliferate, but as they proliferating, they have to increase in size. Since we said increase in size, it's what? The hypertrophy. Let us go to metaplasia. The cause. Okay, before we go to the cause, let's talk about, we define it. What is metaplasia? This is the change of one cell type to another cell type. This means it can be from one epithelium type to another epithelium. Okay, so when we talk about the metaplasia, it is divided into two. There is the epithelial metaplasia and also the connective tissue metaplasia. So epithelial tissue metaplasia and also the connective tissue metaplasia. When we talk about the epithelial tissue metaplasia, it is also divided into two, which is the squamous and the other one is the columnar. Okay, meta. So epithelial metaplasia and columnar metaplasia. So metaplasia, it is the change of a cell to another cell type. Since it's epithelial, meaning from another epithelial to another epithelial. For the connective tissue, it is from another epithelial connective tissue to another connective tissue. So, what is the stimulus here? The stimulus basically is the irritation of one of these epithelium when they become irritated. Smoke can irritate, and also the stones, such as the gallstones. Yeah. So these are the stimulus. So irritation. What causes irritation? Smoke in cigarette smokers and also the stones. So when you talk about the squamous metaplasia, what does it really mean? It means that it is the squamous that is replacing a particular epithelial cells. A squamous replacing an epithelial cell, not a squamous to be replaced, but it is this same squamous that is replacing. Then for the columnar metaplasia, it means it is the columnar that is replacing the epithelial cell type. So here under squamous, where can we find the squamous metaplasia? One, we can find this squamous metaplasia in the respiratory tract. In the respiratory tract, there is ciliated columnar, and also pseudostratified. These are ciliated. So in this respiratory tract, when the stimulus, basically the smoke irritate these types of cells, which is the ciliated cells. As a result, these cells fail to adapt. They fail to adapt to the condition. As a result, these cells is being replaced by what? By squamous. What specifically squamous? It is stratified squamous. Stratified squamous. So now, what is the mechanism? This mechanism is just due to the stem cell lipoglamin. So the stem cell lipoglam itself, after lipoglamin itself, it started to produce the squamous cells, which is the stratified squamous, in order to replace these ciliated cells so that it can adapt and makes the respiratory tract to continue functioning. So now when we talk about the columnar, this simply means when the column replaces. Okay, when the column replaces. Where can this seen? It can be seen in the esophagus. The esophagus is made up of the squamous cells. But these squamous cells, which is the stratified squamous, are being replaced by columnar cells. How? During the gastric reflex. During the gastric reflex. So when there is a gastric reflex, this meaning there is the production of hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid, it goes up to the esophagus. As it goes up to the esophagus, the cell will reprogram itself and replaces the squamous by the columnar cells. So this mostly, it is commonly seen in the patients with Barrett. Barrett is esophageal. So people with Barrett esophageals are the one whose squamous cells are being replaced by columnar cells. And also when you go back to the squamous metaplasia, where the squamous replace the epithelial type of the cell, this can also be seen in the granular ducts, also the bowel ducts, and also the kidney. This comes as a result when there is a stone, such as for the bowel, when there is a gallstone. The cells that are there are cuboidal. But those cuboidal cells are being replaced by what? Stratified squamous cells. So this is the metaplasia. Let us just now go to the last one, which is the atrophy. So the atrophy, this simply means the decrease in cell size and the decrease in cell number. Okay, cell number. So what can be the cause? The cause can be the increase in protein degradation, and also the reduce in protein synthesis. It can lead to the atrophy. So what is the physiological This physiological cause, this is when the cell become very small in size as a result of the nutrients, decrease in the nutrient supply, and also the decrease in the blood supply to the cell, which is just mean ischemia. When we talk about the this should be the pathological. This is it, pathological, which is the abnormal state. The decrease in the nutrient supply and also the decrease in the blood supply, which is ischemia. This is the pathological condition. It is not the normal condition. It's abnormal type. So we talk about the physiological. This is just the decrease in the size of brain in aging, and also the decrease in the size of the uterus after giving birth. So this is how the cell adapt. They do all these things just in order to maintain its normal function. So they need to adapt to the new state so that they continue functioning the normal way. And these are the 4 types of adaptations that the cell can undergo. So in the next, we are going to discuss cell injury. Thank you.